Another rainy camp in the books at Ohio State. Welcome to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and welcome back to Snap Judgments. He is Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. This is the Austin and Birm Show with some recruiting insight and some current Buckeyes talk after the Buckeyes checked another one off the box here in June. Steamy afternoon, rainy.
April showers bring May showers, which bring June showers.
Yeah. So aside from the weather, though, more competition, more one-on-one, and lots of trash talk from the Buckeyes counselors out there watching these young prospects battle.
It is fun watching the guys, and especially today. So we'll just start at the rip here, talking about the Glenville kids who are here. Jameer Perez, a defensive tackle who's committed to Kentucky, was here camping. So was Sincere Johnson, who will be back on Thursday night for his official visit with Ohio State this weekend. Jameer Perez also taking an official visit. So if you're one of those folks who are out there going, man, I want more Glenville in my life, stay tuned, because I think that there's an opportunity for Ohio State to add a pair of Glenville Tar-Blooders in the class of 2026. And those guys showing up today to just work out is another good reminder of the influence of Ted Ginn Sr. On the recruiting process. Yeah,
the Glenville guys got a special shout out from Tim Hinton as they wrapped up this camp on a Monday afternoon. Ted Ginn Sr. was over there, and just like Arvell Reese attached at the hip to him. Also, Birm, we know that he's a physical freak. Is he getting taller too? I don't know what is going on.
I don't know what they're doing to him. I think there's a room here where they're just injecting him with, like, I don't know. They're not injecting him with anything. Let me be very clear. He's just really a really good athlete, and now you're starting to see him grow up also. And wow, like it looks.
He's growing up. He's growing out. He's growing in every direction.
And he was very, very instrumental in walking Sincere Johnson around and making sure Sincere was with him the whole time. Like, it would be very difficult, even after the official visit that Sincere just took to Alabama last week. I have a tough time seeing him anywhere else. And Arvell Reese's, not just his friendship is a reason why, but Sincere told me back at the Under Armour camp in April, seeing what Ohio State and what James Laurinaitis have done with Arvell in the year and a half that James has been working with him is an eye-opener that, like, you can't get that sort of insight somewhere else. When you know a kid and you see what he's become in the time here, and not just on the field but off of it, what they've done, what they brought out of Arvell personality-wise. Oh, yeah. Sincere does not have the shy bone that Arvell does. Sincere is a very, like, affable, very, like, we talk about Edric Houston all the time. Sincere's that type of kid. He's got that type of personality. So he doesn't need that work. But he is definitely going to need the on-field work. I was told that he broke one of the tackling machines today because he hit it so hard. This is not a kid who was here just having a laugh. He was here to really work out.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to watch sort of the revitalization of the Glenville pipeline, because 5, 6, 7 years ago, we weren't talking about it in the way where you could count every year on Ted Ginn Sr. that program sending multiple Tar-Blooders down to work out in the Woody and then to become Buckeyes themselves. And then, I don't know, the talent level in the program or development, I don't know all that, but it took a noticeable step back. And it's like, you knew that Glenville still wanted guys to keep going every single year, but Ohio State didn't necessarily have room or the inclination to bring them in. But whatever has been rectified, whether that's just, demographics and the next influx of athletes there, it's coming back.
The relationship with Ohio State has never gotten bad, but there was a time in the middle of the Urban Meyer era where it's like, I don't know that they see quite eye to eye. Ryan Day is, as a younger coach, is someone that when Ted Ginn talks, he listens to him. He knows the history. We went 10 years in this program at Ohio State without a Glenville guy from 2014 when Marshawn Lattimore and Eric Smith signed with Ohio State to the 24 class, where Bryce West finally, broke through with Arvell. So it's definitely off and running now.
Yeah. Before Monday, it was also a busy recruiting weekend for Ohio State with a commitment on Sunday.
Commitment on Sunday. We got Favor Aki in the boat. If you're watching this on 97.1 or 10 TV or 10 TV Plus or however you're consuming it, you can hear the interview we had with Favor. Really great kid. One of only 3 official visitors over the weekend for Ohio State, which in my time covering the team, I can't remember an official visit weekend in June that was smaller than this one. But for Ohio State, it was actually pretty darn important. Other than Favor Aki, who, spoiler alert, he had actually committed inside of this building here back in March.
Double spoiler, you did that interview on Friday.
Did that interview actually on Thursday.
Thursday.
But the other 2 guys that were in town, Emmanuel Ruffin, who's a defensive tackle from Alabama, and Drew Evers, an offensive guard from Texas, both those guys are players that needed a lot of one-on-one time, and so they got a ton of attention. It was the first visit for Ruffin from Alabama, as I said. He's going to visit LSU and Alabama in the next couple of weeks, and then the decision for him is going to come probably early July. So the Buckeyes feel like they're actually maybe the team to beat right now, but we'll see if that changes with the continued trips in the South a little bit closer to home. And then with Drew Evers, the offensive lineman from Texas, my personal opinion is that it's probably an Ohio State and SMU battle right now, but
I don't know that I've ever heard that before.
Welcome to the new world of college football. He's a Dallas kid. It's the NIL era has leveled off some things, but he's got a visit coming up to Penn State. He's already taken trips to Oklahoma, and he's been all over the place. So LSU, et cetera. So and he's got one coming up to A&M, which he's an A&M legacy, but from what I understand, what I hear, it might be more SMU, Ohio State. So there's a lot of things happening. I don't know exactly what time this is going to be published. I don't know what time other things are happening, but the Buckeyes are also probably on the clock for another commitment in the class of 2026, which we're not going to spoil for anybody, but for those wondering, like, when is something going to happen on the defensive line or running backs like we saw on Sunday, all these things in time are starting to occur.
When you have a lighter official visit weekend like that with just 3, clearly that there's some thought put into that number. What was the approach, and does that mean that there are going to be like other weekends that Ohio State is targeting to be like, this is going to be an extravaganza?
Well, there's only 2 official visit weekends left in June, so there can't be that big of an extravaganza. What really happened is you had 4 or 5 guys who you had penciled in for that weekend that were in the same boat as Evers and Ruffin, which is, hey, we're just starting to get to know you, and generally Ohio State would prefer that an official visit be someone's 3rd or 4th or 5th visit to campus, but when you offer a lot of kids in the May evaluation period, that doesn't lend a lot of time to saying, let's build this relationship before UOV. So a guy like Emmanuel Ruffin, for example, did not get offered by Ohio State until about a month ago. So this was his first trip. Kerry Wilder from Gardena, California, who made an official visit over the weekend of May 31st, that was his first trip to Ohio State. He'd been offered 3 weeks before that. So it's a little bit different based on which players you're dealing with. The next 2 weekends are massive.
Yep.
Like, they are big weekends. There are multiple, a dozen or more each weekend. And that's what Ryan Day prefers. They want official visits in June because they want one-on-one time. They want players to be able to see coaches with their families. They want to see Brian Hartline's children and his wife, and they want it to be a very family-oriented weekend. That doesn't mean Ohio State didn't have other stuff going on. This past weekend, Brady Edmonds, the borderline 5-star quarterback in the class of 2027, is still committed, obviously, to Ohio State. He was here for camp on Thursday. He's here on camp today on Monday. He was in town all weekend, going to the Clippers game, hanging out, just getting to...
If it ever stops raining.
Getting to know Columbus. But he had Monshawn Sales, who's a 5-star wide receiver from Indianapolis, on campus with him on Saturday. He had Brock Williams, a 5-star tight end, with him on campus on Saturday from Illinois. He had Dakota Garant, a 5-star wide receiver from Michigan, with him on Saturday. 5-star wide receiver Jameer Brown here today working with Brady. Brian Hartline, it's funny because we've spent the last 2+ years saying, like, readjust expectations based on the NIL era, and you can't have all 5 stars. And now with the House settlement that went into effect, or was approved essentially on Friday night and goes into effect July 1st, we're going to see some very unique roster building in the next couple of years as these teams try to figure out how much you can actually pay marquee players. Mm-hmm. So if you just get them all here and you can convince them, hey man, what we offer is unlike anywhere else, especially for wide receivers. Maybe you take a little bit less, but now you can't really get run over by a USC. I mean, Oregon still may because of their connection with Nike.
What are you supposed to do if people are just lying? I mean, there's nothing you can do to counteract that anyway.
You can't do that. So the Buckeyes will continue to do what they do, tell the truth, be upfront, and say that the opportunity here is it's built in pieces. This is not just a show up and we're going to give you a bag full of money. That is not what they're doing. But it does get more interesting when the salary cap thing happens, because everyone's going to be trying to figure out what even footing is,
right,
and then how to step on someone's head to get one leg up, because that's what always happens.
Yeah, it is.
It is pouring down, right?
There will be another one-day camp on Tuesday, another on Thursday, so looking forward to that, because
it's and the 7-on-7 camp on Wednesday, which will be very, very busy and good group.
Which has given me a great opportunity to float around and talk to some of the current Buckeyes. The first one out to go get extra work, even after morning workouts. They had that at 6:30 on Monday morning for the current Ohio State Buckeyes. Caden McDonald just goes out by himself and is throwing the sled around with abandon. It was
out there with Dominic Kirks, right?
Yeah, but Caden got out there about 15 minutes before Dominic Kirks was doing some reps, snaps all on his own. And when we've talked about Edric Houston, we did that on Thursday on Snap Judgments. We've talked about him physically in the development, and you mentioned talking to both of those guys and how much weight is on their shoulders. I think clearly they know that, and they are not shirking any of the responsibility when it comes to the work. So I didn't ask Caden for an update. He's trying to do a little bit of the opposite of Edric. He's trying to slim down a little bit. He looks awesome, and it's scary to me how easily he can just get rid of that sled.
It's strong.
It's freaky,
kid, man. Like that's one where you really. He came in here about 330 pounds. Ohio State, he's about 6'2", came in around 630. I think they'd rather have him in like the 315 range, but I think he's getting down there. He certainly looked the part. I thought Dominic Kirks looked good standing next to him. That's a guy that we don't talk much about because of where he's been in the depth chart. He was a late addition to the class of 2024 when he got in. 25, I'm sorry. So like, no, 24. So he didn't play at all last year, but he's starting to look. He actually flashed quite a bit in the spring, and then he got hurt in the spring game, and you weren't sure if that was going to be a residual thing through the summer. It seems clear there.
Yep, he was working out.
I did get first eyes on Jeremiah Smith this summer. We did get a chance to talk to JJ. He was out there working with the receivers and watching stuff and having a good time. And I just pulled him aside and said, hey, number one, congratulations on being on the cover of NCAA College Football. It's a pretty big deal.
Number two, give me a copy.
Number two, did they give you any freebies? He said not yet. Number three, I asked him if he's any good at it, and that it would be pretty embarrassing if you get housed in a game that you're on the cover on. So that's got to work on it. And then the real question was ultimately, how are you balancing this new? He was a star a year ago, okay? He was one of the stars of college football. He is now like a LeBron James level superstar in America on the sports scene. And he said he said it was challenging at times. He said he's really looking forward to July getting here because then it's just football.
Right.
Except
for when he's almost certainly going to be going to Big Ten Media Days and under the spotlight for an entire day.
But they can find a way to not put him there as a sophomore, as not a captain.
No, he's going.
Okay, he's going. I'm trying, JJ. I'm sorry.
They can't not take him.
Also, Edric, if you're watching this, stop telling me to stop talking. The guy talks more than anyone, and he constantly sees me when I'm out here doing my job, networking, socializing, and I don't know if he's following me around. I don't know if he's got spies telling him where I am.
Yeah.
But I don't like it. Edric?
Well, he comes in, he asked me, he said,
he asked you to rein me in.
Where did Birm go? Can you tell him to stop talking? But no.
It's unbelievable.
I need Birm to talk. That's my whole livelihood.
Who else today? Jermaine Matthews looking good out here. Confidence as ever.
Confident as ever, no doubt. A lot of trash talking. He was the primary ringleader of that, as you might expect, which I loved. I always love. It started to rain a little bit, and he went inside. I was like, if you leave, then no one else is going to be out there to talk trash for the cornerbacks because Devin Sanchez is not really ready to take up that mantle yet. And he said, you know what? You're right. And he went back out there. So I did my part to bring entertainment to everybody else out there. But we did not see on Thursday CJ Hicks out here. So I had a chance to talk to him when he was still. He and Matt Patricia are also just people that seem to be attached at the hip. Great relationship. We've made mention of that and some of the after practice stuff that we saw, the communication and coaching between them in spring camp that is now continuing into June. CJ Hicks is at 245 pounds right now. I think that there is a push from Larry Johnson and the defensive line group that maybe he should get to 250. I don't know if there seems to be a comfort level at 245 because that's still 7 pounds more than coming out of spring camp in the spring game for CJ Hicks. I don't know if he'll get to that point, if he needs to get to that point.
The people in charge of his weight don't want him to get higher than 245.
Correct.
Based on what I could ascertain today. But I did also pick up that he's playing a lot of defensive end, and where I initially thought maybe it would break down as Kenyatta Jackson and Bo Atkinson on one side and Caden Curry and Logan George on the other. I've picking up that it's actually been more Caden Curry and CJ Hicks on the other side, and that Logan George has been moving around doing some work inside. So he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got really powerful hands and a really good first step.
Heavy hands.
And so it's something to look for there. That maybe means nothing come August, but it's interesting right now nonetheless.
I do feel like, as we've talked about ad nauseum with the defensive tackle and three technique situation, if there is a player that could be borrowed from the edge to move inside. And we got a number of questions about this, actually, I think on the mailbag, the first Freaky Friday on the beat was like, could Caden Curry do that? And I don't believe that Caden's really got the size or the ability to get there and maybe kick into 3 technique. We've seen different rushman packages.
Yeah,
and different,
as a rushman package, like, makes perfect sense.
In terms of like first down, second down, Logan George might be the most likely candidate of that, although Atkinson is 6'6". I don't know.
We have not seen...
Haven't seen him yet. So
maybe we have, and we just don't know.
I haven't seen him. But again, if that's the possibility, because I think everyone seems fully on board with the CJ Hicks thing there. And I was also of the mindset, like, okay, you might have Caden Curry and Logan George and Kenyatta Jackson and Tyler Atkinson over here, and then CJ Hicks like just plays his own position for 15 to 20 snaps. But it doesn't seem like that's the case either.
No, they want to create a well-rounded player here. If I misspoke 2 weeks ago, I kind of forgot that CJ Hicks technically doesn't have another year after this one. I'm sure they could find one. There is no rules anymore.
There are no rules.
But if he wants to be in the NFL next year, he has to be proving that he can be a complete 245, 250-pound defensive end, stand-up edge rusher. He is not going to be out there to stop the run, but he needs to be able to at least prove that he's not a liability out there. And so we saw that. There's a lot of players floating around, still are. He won't play this year, and so I don't really want to talk too much about Carter Lowe, but he looks considerably different. As somebody who watched him in Toledo for the last 3 years, and he looks about 295, 300 pounds. He looks svelte. He's playing only left tackle at this point, so that's something to, as we start to try to figure out who are the tackles.
Yeah,
it's Ethan Anianwa and Carter Lowe with Ian Moore doing some rotating between the right side and left side. So trying to figure out who goes where.
Yeah, we did see Ian Moore.
But the fact that he's not playing any guard is really the takeaway there.
I think almost exclusively when we saw Ian Moore, he was on the left side throughout spring. But we'll try and get some more insight and observations on that as camp season rolls along in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Maybe there'll be more snap judgments. There will definitely be another episode of The Beat, Talking Tuesdays with Adam King. Probably going to be leaning pretty heavy on the House settlement and NIL and how Ohio State is prepping for that, because they've got this new Buckeye sports group that's going to be overseeing that. So we'll dig into that. I know Adam's been working on reporting out some of that. In an interview later this week with Ross Bjork, we're working on a podcast appearance, but he's also going to be updating the media on Thursday. So full week of coverage in the Woody coming your way, starting it on a Monday on a rainy afternoon here in Columbus. But glad that we could bring some snap judgments to you. For Birm, I am Austin. We'll talk to you later.